Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the One Fear Per Year podcast, where we talk about fear, how it holds us back, but where we really dive into how we can be totally set free and live a life that we are meant to live. And you guys, hold on tight because I have the most amazing guest. I'm so honored that he's here. Ryan Estis, thank you for joining me and the listeners today.
Oh, Janice, it's a privilege. I've been looking forward to it, and thanks for having me.
Woo! Okay, let's dive in. I want to know, first off, before we talk about you personally and the fears in your own life, what do you think society as a whole struggles with the most when it comes to fear? Like, what kinds of fears do you think we as a society struggle with?
I think maybe the biggest is failure because it's broad, right? It can permeate all areas and all arenas of your life. But if you think sort of the manifestation of fear, it's about something not working out the way we desire or the way we want. And unfortunately, what fear can transcend into over time is limiting beliefs and false identity patterns. And so you begin to believe things that just aren't accurate or a false construct of yourself. And and then that informs your self-talk. So it gets reinforced. And I have very specific examples of how that's shown up in my life. But I think a lot of people walk around and they want to get there, but they're terrified. And the idea of the change or the work to cross the chasm or to move into alignment seems daunting, overwhelming, or in some respects impossible. And when that's your identity and belief system, you can end up being stuck. And I've navigated periods where I felt very stuck or trapped and I didn't see the way forward or convince myself that I wasn't capable of moving forward in a new direction. And I think it holds us back. And so I think that a lot of people are walking around, self included, with limiting beliefs, false identity patterns, and they let fear become the driver of their life. And that's unfortunate. And it's something that I think takes work and intention to overcome, to
Let's talk about
transcend our nature.
Yes. Oh, transcend. Let's talk about fear in your own life. How has that shown up for you? Give me a story or two and how you've felt regarding fear in your own life.
Sure, I'll give you a specific example and then maybe broadly sort of zoom out to talk about, life in general. But a very specific example, Janice, you know me through professional speaking and our community Impact 11. And I'm one of the founders and the owners of that group. And so I am an entrepreneur and I do a lot of public speaking and have some other responsibilities also. But my career journey was really through corporate America. My background's in sales, and I grew in a company over 15 years and ended up being the chief sales and strategy officer in that business. And while I had this desire or dream that was sort of on the shelf or maybe whispering to me about, hey, you could go do this on your own, or you could start a consulting practice, and speaking would be a great way to move ideas out to and have a broader impact and create opportunities for your consulting business. I was terrified to do it. I had a false identity. One of my stories was I'm not an entrepreneur. So if you would have asked me 15 years ago, Ryan, why don't you start a business and do this on your own? I would have said to you very directly, Janice, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a corporate guy. I need the systems and the structure. I mean, I had a whole narrative around this. People like me don't start businesses. I have no experience doing that. It would be too big of a risk. Most 80% of businesses fail. I could quote statistics to you about why I couldn't do it. I mean, I was very my fear. I was afraid, and so I went and researched fear to validate my false narrative about myself. And then when the pain of staying the same, started to catch up to my fear of change and fear of failure. I took a deep, but the fear didn't go away, by the way. I just felt all this fear and I did something anyway. And, I had a lot of resistance internally in my family, friends, community, network, professionally saying, you're throwing away your career. You're going to ruin your life. This is a midlife crisis, all the things that, because People are uncomfortable when we change and we expand and we transcend and we grow, and especially if they're not. And so that fear, it kept me stuck for several years. But if I had let that fear continue to drive me forward, you and I would have never met. Impact 11 wouldn't exist, and I wouldn't be on this podcast. And that's how fear can derail us in our lives.
Bam. Oh my goodness. Almost word for word, this is crazy. What you just said is exactly how I felt in my marriage. And, went through a divorce 13, 14 years ago. Those same words, like the pain of staying in that situation eventually became bigger, greater than the pain or the scariness of the unknown. So I can totally resonate with that. Actually, finished your book, Prepare for Impact, which was amazing. And I just want to read one part out of here from you. It says, part of being a good leader is being comfortable being uncomfortable. Our brains are wired to keep us safe, so we invent stories that rationalize the need for safety. Those stories replace the trust with a lot of fear and paranoia about something that might happen. And guess what? Your people notice. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. How do we get there? Is it through action and doing, or how? What's your best take on that?
I think the best take is to move into a state of awareness. And so being a lot more aware of where shows up in our life, what we're actually afraid of. And so the question you asked me to start the podcast is a good question for every listener to reflect and journal on. How does fear show up in your life? Where is fear holding you back? Right? You have to come into an awareness about what is making you uncomfortable. We rationalize our own existence. Now, you and I had a similar story, right? When the pain of staying the same became here's the danger. What if the pain doesn't reach that threshold and we continue to let our fear move us in the wrong direction? Because it may not reach critical mass, or you may not have a life event that confronts you so dramatically. So the key for a leader or somebody listening is to really identify, hey, where are these fears limiting me or holding me back? Even though it's good enough, right? The job's good enough. The marriage is good enough. You didn't come here to be good enough. And that isn't the way to fulfill your potential, find meaning and purpose, create impact, or set an example for the people you love. It doesn't have to even be about business. So the awareness piece is important. And then through its introspection, it's asking yourself hard questions. It's sitting with yourself and understanding where fear plays out. And so then with that awareness, you can be intentional in confronting it and confronting your fear. And I'm a big fan of the phrase, feel the fear and do it anyway. There was a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Before I quit my job, I had it on audio and I would drive around my car and just listen to it over and over and over because I'm like, I think I'm going to do something that scares me. That's it. The fear doesn't go away, but what you do is you exercise the muscle of confronting it. And when you make a micro decision, feeling uncomfortable, you actually learn how to make decisions and move forward while the discomfort is there. That's the practice. And, there's a process of doing that too. Once you have the awareness of what scares you, you confront the decision of moving into discomfort. And then I call it fear setting. Part of what you can analyze is what would it take if I make this decision to get back to baseline to where I was? Now, a big decision like staying married or getting divorced, but maybe even having the conversation, that could be a first step. So often we don't speak our truth because we're afraid of what the consequences of that would be. But for me, once I got into the realization that, okay, you'll give up the 15 years of equity in this job, but realistically, if it doesn't work out in a couple of years, what would it take for me to return back to homeostasis? How long would that take? What would the process be like? When I realized, yes, I could probably get another job again. My resume and track record were good. And I could probably re-enter at or around. And so it may take me a year or two to build up the equity and the relationships and the reputation and get back to that place. So, okay, it's a 2 to 4 year commitment versus what if I never do this? How am I going to feel when I'm 80 and my life is coming to an end? And the realization that I was going to have this moment of opportunity, this window, and regret staying the course, that actually scared me more than a potential failure. And when you make change, you move into the unknown, you don't get a crystal ball. That's the other thing I really want to tell people is we don't know if it's going to be a good decision yet. Your drive for security and knowing how it's going to play out will limit you. So we have to make decisions that are a bit ambiguous. I tell leaders all the time, today in the world, you have to be able and willing to call shots, make choices without complete information. You have to be willing to test and iterate and experiment because everyone's looking at you. And if you can't project confidence and be decisive in that, and decisiveness is one of the principles in the book. We talk a lot about decision making because our lives are end up being a result of all the choices we make, little and small, little and big.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits. So, of course, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to be on the other side of the unknown, which is what makes it so scary to begin with. But for you, what have been some of the benefits that you've experienced from letting go of that job that you once had that was very secure and safe and, all of that, but painful? Like what have you experienced?
The benefit is my ability to be uncomfortable and move forward anyway. The benefit isn't the outcome. We could talk about, oh, the career I have and I made more money or sure. Those things, the career I have today is a lot more rewarding, fulfilling, financially stable and secure. It was a false narrative because all of the things I was afraid about didn't play out. And things I never could have imagined were possible revealed themselves. I mean, 15 years ago, I wasn't thinking about a community and going on podcasts. I was in survival mode, right? And so moving in this new direction and being uncomfortable opened up a world of possibility that far exceeded my own expectations in every metric. Now I haven't started one company, I've started 3. I am an entrepreneur and I'm scaling businesses way bigger than me. And, financially, it's been so much more rewarding than it would have been staying the course and being the CEO of that business. That isn't the big benefit, though. Sounds nice, and it's nice. Those are good benefits. The big benefit is for who you become in the process.
Mm.
I'm somebody that doesn't let fear drive my life. I'm somebody that lives an intentional life according to my values, alignment, and what I want to create in the time I have on this planet. And I might be afraid of a decision and I might be afraid of the unknown, but I have the capacity and the competency to move into that and to course correct when more information becomes available. I'm not afraid to change. I'm not afraid to take a chance. And most importantly, I'm not afraid to bet on me if it means moving to alignment or fulfillment with what I want the most. And so getting clarity on that and developing that competency, and it is a competency, has been maybe the great gift of my life.
Bam. In this next year, do you have a particular fear or a resistance to something that you want to tackle? Or is there a story recently that you can tell us of something that presented itself where you felt that resistance,
Sure.
but you did it anyway?
Yeah, so I do. I'm very intentional about how I live my life, and so I have a list of 50 things that I want to do before I die. And I have a very precise and specific 1 year plan, and my plan includes a theme. I'll share the theme with you. The theme is expansion. Now, the only way for me to expand as a person is to actually stretch myself. And in the growth process, when the fear I had a life coach who told me a great story. So when the fear comes up and the discomfort's there, and you're a beginner or you're confronted with something and you don't know the right choice, he said that's a beautiful gift because it means you care. So I've even replaced the word fear with I care about this or I'm excited about this. Even if I don't have all the answers yet. And I threw away the idea of I'm gonna have a crystal ball and know how this works. So I invite myself to go on the adventure, right? And I do micro things in my life that scare me. Here's one. Last night I spent 2 hours in a guitar lesson. Now I had this dream as a kid to learn how to play the guitar, right? And but I wasn't Yeah, the 1 or 2 attempts I made, I was a little uncoordinated, and I felt uncomfortable, and I couldn't keep up with the other student and the instructor, and so I was like, "I'm not good at this," and then the whole of the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, the narrative, "I'm not coordinated, I'm not this, I'm embarrassed," all those things. And so I'm confronting that in a micro way and taking guitar lessons, and it is hard, and it is uncomfortable, and, the guy teaching me could play it. I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm never gonna be able," and so I'm confronting all those feelings. I'm forcing myself. And, and so putting myself into uncomfortable situations permeates all areas of my life. Stay a student, keep expanding, learn and grow. Go do something today that makes you uncomfortable. We talk in sales, we talk about rejection therapy, right? Because we all human nature, we're afraid of rejection. So what's one thing you could do today where you know the probability of getting rejected was extremely high? So I've done things like I'll walk into Nordstrom's and try out a pair of jeans. I love these jeans. Great, you gonna get them? I'll tell you what, I'll give you $100 for them. And so I know that's probably gonna get, or go into a Starbucks and tell them you'll give them $2 for the latte that costs 9 and see what happens. But get into the process of just dealing with discomfort. I move through rejection. It doesn't even phase me. And so getting in the energy of those micro moments, it's like a muscle. And now my courage to live a more authentic, intentional life is much higher than the person who was terrified of change 15 years ago because it might not work out. What if it doesn't? Who am I going to become in the process? That's what I think about the most.
And yeah, and taking those steps, like you said, to build your courage muscle, which is like, bam, because change is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what. Life is going to slap us upside the face with different things. We don't know what. Whereas if we continue building that muscle, putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, when the crazy thing does happen, we're a little more prepared. Like we've been to the gym, we've kind of got this down.
Right? So now you have the muscle, and then you can also reframe the event. So when adversity or unexpected pain, challenge, trauma, failure shows up on my doorstep, as it's going to. So I already know that's inevitable. It's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. That's life. We don't get out of this without confronting these things. So I've already oriented myself to, I don't know it yet, but now I'm in the change, I'm in the learning lane, I'm in the change zone. So something weird is gonna happen out there. And so instead of saying, "Oh my God, why is this happening to me?" I might spend a day there. Okay. Yeah, I had a tumor in my left bicep. Oh, why me? It could be cancer. What am I gonna do? And what if I reorient that? And so the two questions I ask myself are, what can I learn? Where's the opportunity? And the tumor in my arm, thank God, didn't turn out to be cancer, so I got lucky. But imagine my perspective. Imagine what I learned through recognizing that life is finite. I'm not I said 80, I'm not promised 80, could be promised 2 weeks. How do I want to live? I'm going to go on the adventure. I'm going to answer the call. I'm going to listen to the whisper. I'm going to follow my heart. Those lessons that came out of that have been the greatest gifts of my life. Our darkest moments can be defining ones if we are awake to the lesson. That's the first question. The second question is, where's the opportunity? Because when everything else is falling apart, new opportunities reveal themselves. Last two companies I started, one came in the middle of the great financial crisis of 2008. Everything's falling down, economy's collapsing, Lehman Brothers is going out. 1 out of 5 people lose their jobs. I start a company. Everyone told me it was the worst time to do it, was the best time to do it. So now my muscle's strong. Right now I'm like, oh, everybody else was wrong. It's counterintuitive. When things fall apart, opportunity presents itself. Now that's my belief. So COVID, next big crisis. COVID's here. Oh, everything's falling apart. Stop this. It's bad. We don't know what's going to happen. People are going to die. Everything's going to be shut down for years. Time to start the next one. So those are the last two businesses I started in the great financial crisis and the beginning of COVID. Two best decisions I've ever made. Companies are thriving today. And it's because I taught myself to look for the opportunity in the challenge. If you can just step back and be aware and awake and quiet your mind and say that something is going to reveal itself here. Divorce, career change, layoff. I mean, all of these things that are, yes, difficult to do. I'm not denying the difficulty. Of course it's there. But that adversity can be a gift. and it can propel us in a more authentic direction and reveal our truth. You gotta practice that exercise.
Absolutely. And I can just say, to your point, it did that for me unequivocably with the divorce. I found myself and my unique voice, and it was a gift, but it took a while to see that and get there. Oh my gosh, time has flown by. One last question, Ryan. If you were to choose an opposite word from fear, so you have fear on this one hand, an opposite word for you, what would that be?
Love. Those are the two primary emotions in the human experience. And so the way I sort of frame it is, fear it really can drive us in the wrong direction. And we end up getting in a sort of energy of proving ourselves, our worth, our ability, and it shrinks us. But love is the opposite. So when I think about career today, one of the questions like, am I leading from a state of fear? Am I leading from a state of love? Do I have something to prove or do I have something to give? Because both are present in me and they always will be. And it's my job to determine which one is going to lead me and which one is going to take a back seat in the background. And then reframing the relationship with fear. Oh, I care about this. Oh, this is important to me. Okay. Pay attention to that. But I want to be someone who lives the rest of my life with something to give on my heart.
Ryan, you're amazing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your heart, your soul, your insights with us. Everybody, go out, get uncomfortable, realize, know in the depths of your being that your greatest life is right on the other side of those fears that hold you back.